thank you for sitting down with us. We appreciate your time.
So happy to join you.
So I want to get started by kind of recapping the big headlines of 2025. In your eyes, what were the big stories coming out of the Assembly this year?
Sure. So we saw some bipartisan work happen on the state budget. It was really important that Democrats were at the table and improved that budget significantly. That made some significant investments in education, childcare, higher ed, and we prevented Republicans from cutting some essential programs in Wisconsin as well. So that was good to see. It's not the budget that will pass when we're in the majority, but it was progress to have Democrats, particularly from the state Senate, at the table. We didn't see a lot of other action from Republicans on the issues that are impacting Wisconsinites most. We know that people want us to be addressing affordability in particular, healthcare, childcare, prescription drug costs, groceries, housing, and we didn't see a lot of action from our Republican colleagues on those issues. A little bit of bipartisan work on housing, but a lot more to be done. And so I do think that the people of Wisconsin are going to be looking at the work of the legislature and asking why we didn't tackle those really tough issues that they're facing.
And I want to dive into these because I think these are some of the big headlines, as you mentioned, coming out of this year, especially affordability. A Marquette Law School poll came out, and no surprise, affordability, cost of living was the #1 issue for voters. So overall, do you feel like the state legislature has adequately tackled that issue this year?
Absolutely not. So we're seeing people's healthcare costs go up in a real way, of course, because of actions at the federal level. And we've seen next to no action from Republicans here at the state level in Wisconsin on that issue. We put out bills on prescription drug costs earlier this year. Those have yet to get even a hearing in the Assembly or the Senate. And no effort by Republicans here to push their federal colleagues, speak out against these cuts to the ACA subsidies, which on average will impact a person in Wisconsin who's on the exchange with a $664 a month increase. That will mean that people no longer have health care because they just won't be able to afford it. There's a lot more that we could be doing here to address that issue.
And what have conversations looked like with Republicans? Obviously, Democrats do need Republican support to get a lot of legislation through. Are there those conversations happening right now?
On healthcare, we have not seen much interest. We put out a bill on healthy school meals for all earlier this year that would lower grocery costs for a family of 4 in Wisconsin by about $1,800 a year. No interest in that bill either. We have seen some conversations on housing, and that's good. We did see a little money for childcare in the state budget, but again, people in Wisconsin are hurting right now. We're in the holiday season. There's a lot of expenses, and we just are not seeing our Republican colleagues take on that challenge and choose to show up and represent their constituents.
And I want to dive into some of these other topics too, because you mentioned housing, but also childcare, something we saw in the budget, as well as school funding has been a top issue, I feel like. And then obviously for Democrats, abortion is a continuous talker. Let's break down these issues and kind of what we've seen come out of those this year.
Sure. So on education, we saw a bit of an increase for special education reimbursement in the state budget. It's not what was promised because Republicans didn't fund it appropriately by making it a sum sufficient allocation. So a lot of districts are going to continue to struggle. We've seen referendum after referendum around the state putting property taxpayers in a difficult position, right? Do they want to support their schools and raise their own taxes, or allow their schools to fall into disarray because the GOP is just not funding our education system appropriately? So we are continuing to push on that issue. We did put out a bill that would specifically invest in general aids. That means that money goes to our districts and it offsets those property tax increases that we will see otherwise because the Republicans refuse to put that money into the state budget. So that's going to continue to be a really core issue for us. Again, we know folks are squeezed right now, but they also want their kids to go to a great school, be safe, get a good reading and math education, and be prepared for their future career. We can do both. The state just needs to adequately fund education. Your other point here on abortion, we of course believe that people in Wisconsin have the right to make their own decisions about their health care. And we did see the loss of access to abortion in Wisconsin because of court case a few years ago. We still don't have that right protected in state law. So it will be a priority for us in the future to make sure that Wisconsinites have a law on the books that says that they get to make their own healthcare decisions and their reproductive rights decisions, and have a little more stability around that for the future.
And I want to talk too, because we saw a package of bills this year that was introduced to consolidate schools. When we talk about a lot of districts going to referendum in 2024, it was a record number in Wisconsin. I believe it was Representative Neubauer introduced legislation to consolidate districts. And I know that that's something that Democrats have been critical of. Walk me through that. Is that an adequate way to address the school funding issue?
So Republicans have been in charge in the legislature now for coming up on 15 years, and they have underfunded our public schools throughout. They have diverted public dollars to private schools. And now they're looking at the challenging picture facing our districts, and they're saying that the best they have to offer is consolidate districts and close local public schools. I have traveled around the state. I've talked to my own constituents. Nobody is asking for us to close their local school and make their kid get on the bus for hours a day, not be able to participate in sports or after-school activities because they have to get on the bus. Nobody wants to lose their local sports team that they love to cheer for, right, on a Friday night. So I really think that this is a very clear example of Republicans' total failure to invest in our schools, which Wisconsinites see as essential, which we take pride in, and instead they're proposing to close them.
And I want to shift now a little bit. You've mentioned a couple of things that you would like to see the legislature tackle, but I want to talk about some unfinished business from this year. What would you like to see addressed, number one, first day coming back in 2026?
It's got to be affordability. Again, we know that people are struggling, and there are many ways to get at that issue. And so I do hope that our Republican colleagues will listen to their constituents over the time that we're all home for the holidays, and will come back interested in addressing those costs of healthcare and groceries and housing in particular.
Is there specific legislation that you would like to see to tackle that?
Yeah, I think our Healthy School Meals bill, right, that makes sure that every kid has a good meal for breakfast and lunch, that they can focus when they're in school on learning and preparing for their future life, and it saves folks money on groceries, which we know are a real challenge for many families around the state. In terms of unfinished business, we also have seen the bill to expand healthcare coverage for new moms in Wisconsin stall in this state. We know that there are enough co-sponsors of this bill in the Assembly for it to pass if it comes to the floor, and so we've been really pushing for a vote here. But Republicans have been unwilling to take a vote on this issue and to make sure that new moms and babies have adequate access to health care for a full year after that mom has given birth. So we're going to continue to push on that issue, and I hope that authors of that bill on the Republican side, like Pat Snyder and Jesse Rodriguez, will follow through on their promises to their constituents and get that bill passed that they say is a priority for them.
Yeah, because in November we saw the Speaker obviously move that petition into, basically that bill was then moved into another committee. Have you talked with the Speaker about moving that forward at all?
We've been working for many years, and the Speaker has been pretty clear that he does not support this bill. It's hard for us to understand when we're talking about essential, in some cases life-saving health care for new moms in Wisconsin. My hope is that his caucus, our Republican colleagues, will push on him to say, this is something that the people of Wisconsin want, it's the right thing to do, and we can't allow this to stall any longer.
And so you think the pressure from fellow Republican colleagues for the Speaker would be the way to move this roadblock out of the way?
I hope so. The people of Wisconsin have been really clear. And again, we've got Pat Snyder, we've got Jesse Rodriguez, other important members of the Republican caucus who are authors of this bill. They really should be able to push the Speaker to get it done. They're governing.
And continuing this kind of look ahead to 2026, what would a successful year in the Assembly look like?
Well, we've only got a few months left of legislative session. We do hope that our colleagues will address the challenges facing our education system, that they will look at these affordability issues. We hope that we can think long term and look at the challenges facing our infrastructure in Wisconsin, making sure that we're supporting everybody to have access to the outdoors and clean drinking water and air. Protecting our rights and freedoms, especially as they've been under attack by Republicans in Washington. So a lot to do. I hope that we'll get some of that done next year. And then, of course, we'll be preparing for a future in which Democrats will hopefully have a trifecta in 2027, and we will be able to really get things done.
Yeah, and I want to talk to a little bit about this control of the Assembly, because Assembly Democrats need 5 seats to flip it. What's the strategy to do that?
Yeah, so last year we picked up 10 seats, including some very close seats that were held by Republican incumbents. We've got 5 more to go. The path is clear. These are all districts that Democrats have won at different levels of the ballot, and we are recruiting great candidates who are very connected to their community. We've got teachers and coaches, small business owners, veterans, folks from public safety, farmers. These are folks who know their communities, who have struggled, who understand that their neighbors are looking for better from the state legislature, and who are ready to get here and work hard for their communities.
And do you think that's realistic to flip the assembly?
I do, yeah. 5 more seats to go. It looks like it's going to be a good year for Democrats because people are not very happy with what's going on in Washington right now. We've seen strong elections for Democrats across the country this year. So we are prepared to win next year and to govern.
And what would it mean to flip the assembly? What would that look like?
Well, it's been a long time. We have seen Republican gerrymandered maps that meant it was near impossible for Democrats to win the assembly for most of my time here in the legislature. Just last year, we got these fair maps that put a lot of seats in play, and again, we won 10 seats, including some very close ones, and held on to all of our incumbents. So it's going to be a lot of work, but what we do is we get out and we talk to the people who are going to be voting in this election. We spend a huge amount of time knocking on doors, listening to our constituents, responding to their concerns, and communicating our vision for the future of Wisconsin. And we know that people are hungry for that right now. They're frustrated with politics, but they are really happy when someone comes to their door and asks them what we should be doing differently to make their lives better.
And so let's say Democrats control the assembly. What are top things that you would like to see done with that power?
Yeah, well, again, I'm going to be a broken record, but we know that the clear top issue for the people of Wisconsin is affordability. So it's going to be in those key areas. That's going to be our first priority. But we do know that there are several areas that have really been neglected since Republicans have been in power as well. We're having a fight right now about whether we're going to fund the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program and have people have the ability to access public spaces. Everyone deserves to go to a great school and to have good opportunities to have secondary education or training and apprenticeship for their career. We want to invest in that. We want to make sure that our roads and bridges and our physical infrastructure is up to date. Really, it's about having people feel that Wisconsin is a place where they can raise a family, they can do more than just get by, save for retirement, see a long-term future for themselves in this state where they and their family can succeed.
And I kind of want to open up our conversation a little bit more now to talk about these lawsuits that are being brought forward that claim that the congressional maps in Wisconsin are unfairly gerrymandered in favor of Republicans. And I just want to get your take on those cases really quickly.
Sure. So we have seen gerrymandered maps in Wisconsin for quite some time, and I do believe that the maps that we're running on for Congress, right, are gerrymandered. We've got a state that's pretty much perfectly 50-50. We've got 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats. I think most people would look at that and say, that's not right. There's something a little amiss there. So I'm hopeful that we will see a case move forward through the courts and that we will see them consider whether these maps are gerrymandered and hopefully put new maps in place soon.
And are you hoping that the 2026 midterms bring power back to the Democrat Party in Wisconsin kind of as a whole?
Yeah, I am. Again, when I'm talking to people in my community, whether that's at the grocery store, at a listening session, at a holiday fair, I'm hearing that people are not happy. They are concerned about their future. They're concerned about their kids and their ability to live a good life in our communities. And they're looking for something different. And so I am hopeful because we have a vision to put forward that really addresses the challenges that people are facing and is going to be responsive to our constituents. So I'm hopeful that we will win some elections in Wisconsin, that we'll see a Democratic trifecta in the state capitol for the first time in a long time, and that we'll be able to pick up some congressional seats as well.
Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for sitting down with us.
Thank you.